Today I'm going to be showing you how to crochet a CHEMEX sleeve that fits those 10-cup classic CHEMEX machines. And I am working with the Lion brand yarns Re-Up Recycled Cotton and Polyester blend, and these are both size 4 medium weight. And the colors are Rosewater and Surf Spray. I'm also working with a size G or 4 1/4 millimeter crochet hook. And you're going to need a stitch marker for this, so you can use a safety pin, stitch marker, or scrap piece of yarn. And for the buttons, you have a couple of options. You can use just buttons. I like these wooden buttons a lot. And you can also use toggle buttons, which are a little bit different, but they work great. I've worked with both of these in projects and I like them both. Or you can check the links in the description or right here, and I'm going to link to my DIY crochet button. And we're going to begin with a magic circle. So you're going to drape your tail over your working yarn and pinch that intersection. Then you want to insert your crochet hook from underneath like this, and we're just going to yarn over and pull through. Then you're going to separate your magic circle by pulling this loop down, and we're going to chain 2. From here, we're going to place 13 double crochets inside of our magic circle. And you're going to want to work these inside of your loop as well as over the little tail sticking out. And once you have your 13 double crochets, then you're just going to pull on your tail to close the gap in your magic circle like that. And from here, we're going to skip our chain 2 altogether. So go ahead and place 2 double crochets in that first double crochet stitch, and you can crochet over your tail if you would like to, just by lining it up with your stitches and treating it like it is part of your stitch. So we're going to create a spiral pattern when we do this. Once you have your first 2 double crochets in place, then go ahead and mark the first of those 2. And once you've marked that first stitch, then you're going to place 2 double crochets in each stitch in your row, going all the way around for a total of 26 double crochets. And your row ends when you make it back to your stitch marker. So from here, we're just going to remove it. And the pattern for our next row is to place 1 double crochet in this first stitch, and then 2 double crochets in our second stitch. And don't forget to mark the first stitch of your row. And from here, we're just going to alternate between placing 1 and 2 double crochets going all the way around our row for a total of 39 double crochets. And the pattern for our next row is to place 1 double crochet in our first 2 stitches, and then we're going to place 2 double crochets in that third stitch, and we're going to repeat that going around our row for a total of 52 double crochets. And don't forget to mark that first stitch. And the pattern for our next row is to place 1 double crochet in our first 3 stitches, and then 2 double crochets in our fourth. And we're just going to repeat that pattern going all the way around our row for a total of 65 double crochets. And the pattern for our next row is to place 1 double crochet in our first 4 stitches, and then 2 double crochets in our fifth. And we're going to repeat that going around our row for a total of 78 double crochets. And so this is our last row of increasing. So this is going to be the bottom where our CHEMEX is going to sit. From here, we're going to chain 2, and then I want you to turn your work around as if you were working a square pattern. So we're literally just going to flip it over like this and start working in the opposite direction that we were just working in. We're going to skip our chain 2 and starting in our very first double crochet right here, we're just going to place 1 double crochet in each stitch in our row until we get back to our stitch marker right here, which will be the last stitch in this new row like this. And when you get to the end of your row, it's going to look a little bit weird, like kind of a messed up lily pad. So we're going to be working this pattern going back and forth like this. So we're no longer working in a spiral. So for our next row, I want you to chain 5 and then turn your work. And we're going to skip all 5 of those chains and then place a double crochet in that first double crochet. Now this is going to be your buttonhole and it will stretch a little bit. So what I want you to do is just go ahead and test your button to make sure that it will fit in this hole. If it doesn't fit, then you need to add additional chains and then place your double crochet according to whatever size button you're using. So once you have your first double crochet in place, then we're going to place 1 double crochet in our next 2 stitches. And then we're going to place 1 front post stitch around our next post right here. And it can be really helpful to sort of spread your stitches out to see which stitch you just worked on top to see your next post. So to place a front post stitch, we're going to yarn over and we're going to work in the gap between our 3rd and 4th stitch right here. And then we're going to make sure that we loop around our post and then come back out through the front. So we've captured the stem or post of that double crochet. From here, we're going to yarn over and pull up through the post. So you should have 3 loops on your crochet hook. Then we're going to yarn over and drop 2 loops, and then yarn over and drop those last 2 loops to complete our stitch. And from here, we're just going to work back up in the top portion of our stitches again and place 1 double crochet in our next 11 stitches. And once you have your 11 double crochets, then I want you to place a front post stitch around your 12th stitch. And from here, we're just going to follow that pattern, placing 1 double crochet in our next 11 stitches, and then placing a front post stitch around the 12th stitch. We're going to repeat that until we get to the last few stitches of our row. And when you get near the end of this row, and you should have 3 double crochet stitches remaining to work in, and this chain 2. So from here, we're just going to place 1 double crochet in those 3 stitches, and then we're going to chain 2 and turn our work. For this next row, you're going to skip these first 2 chains and then place 1 double crochet in your first 3 stitches. At this point, your next stitch should be that last front post stitch in our previous row. And you can kind of feel it. You'll feel these coming up, which is kind of nice. So for this row, we're going to place 1 back post stitch in this front post. So we're going to want to work around this stem just like we worked around our double crochet. And we're going to begin by yarning over, and then we want to insert our crochet hook from behind our project, loop around the front of the post like this, and then back out the back. So you should be working in the back of your project for this. And it helps to kind of turn it over so you can see what you're doing. From here, we're going to yarn over and pull up through that post, and then yarn over and drop 2 loops at a time to complete that back post stitch. So in our next 2 stitches, we're going to double crochet 2 together. So to do that, I want you to yarn over and insert your crochet hook in your next stitch, and then yarn over and pull up through that stitch, and then yarn over and drop 2 loops. So you should have 2 loops on your crochet hook while you yarn over and insert your crochet hook in your next stitch. Then you're going to yarn over and pull up through the stitch. So you should have 4 loops on your crochet hook. So from here we're going to yarn over and drop 2 loops, and then yarn over and drop 3 loops to complete our double crochet 2 together. So basically the pattern from here is to place 1 double crochet in our next 9 stitches until we make it back down to our next front post stitch. From there, we want to place a back post stitch and then double crochet our next 2 stitches together. So you're going to be placing that double crochet 2 together after each of your back post stitches in this row. And at the end of this row, you should have a total of 72 stitches. And just like before, you're going to end your last back post stitch a few stitches away from the end of your row. So we will not be placing our double crochet 2 together in these last few stitches. Instead, we're just going to place 1 double crochet in each of these last 3 stitches. And this is our buttonhole side, so we're going to chain 5 and then turn our work. And the pattern for this row is going to be very similar to our last row. We're going to begin by skipping this chain 5 and then placing 1 double crochet in each of these first 3 stitches. So now you should be able to see your front and back post ridges here. So for this row, we're going to be placing front post stitches around that post. So you're just going to make sure you're keeping the ridge on the same side all the time. And we're going to double crochet our next 2 stitches together, just like we did in our previous row. And then we're going to place 1 double crochet in the stitches between our front post stitches. And we're just going to follow that pattern, and at the end of this row you should have a total of 66 stitches. And just like before, after we place that last front post stitch, we just want to work in these last 3 stitches without placing the double crochet 2 together. So from here, we are just going to repeat those last 2 rows for our next 5 rows. So just a couple of friendly reminders: make sure you're alternating between front and back post stitches depending on which side you're working. And you always want to make sure that you aren't working accidentally in your post stitch. So in every post stitch, if you turn this over, you can see a leftover stitch. And you want to make sure you aren't accidentally decreasing here at the end. We want to keep these 3 stitches on both sides. And don't forget to add your buttonholes. Each row should decrease by 6 stitches. And last but not least, your last row should have a total of 36 stitches. And you also want to make sure that you've ended not on your buttonhole side, but on the side where you're going to attach your buttons. And from here, we're just going to cut and tie off our yarn. And so now it is time to add those 4 buttons. So I am going to line my buttons up with my buttonholes like this, and I am going to attach them to the left of this row of front and back post stitches here. Thank you so much for working with me, and I hope you have a wonderful, awesome day.